And we're back. So I hope you enjoyed those videos. Yeah. Had I realized what we would end up talking about, I might have picked out something different. So Flatus, Chewy, welcome back.
Oh, that was Flatus's intro music going on right there, wasn't it?
Was it?
Oh, I was still listening to the stream, I think, and some music playing. I thought Flatus was having some intro music. Where is our soundboard, by the way, tonight?
Oh, what happened with that? Where's our... Yeah.
Come on,
damn it. I demand special effects.
And have you given a single giveaway out? Are these poor people in chat just sitting here in a giveaway drought?
Dude, hold on a second. You know who I am?
Bear
Flatus?
Flatus doesn't know who he is, so it's okay.
Did that not work?
No, it did not work. It did not work.
All right. Hold on 1 second.
Oh, okay. All right.
Hold on one quick minuto, will you? Yeah. Por favor, senores. Hold on.
Waiting for it. Waiting for it. Flatus.
So,
but not until after
the roast song. We're going to come back from the break and talk about the roast song.
Let's get back into the roast song now. Oh, Kailas is coming back. Let's wait for her to bam. All right.
Oh, yeah.
So Kailas gets intro music, and that was the worst possible intro music you could play for her. And I think you should be in the corner for that.
Check it. I am Brutality-Jobs, the magician. Magic user, baby. What?
What the happens?
Yeah.
They were like, "Where's the soundboard?" And then I whipped it out, just like that. They were all.
Whip it good.
It's only a game. Why do you have to be mad?
So the roast song is, people are having questions about what it was, because we're going to discuss that question with it. The roast song has been announced to be sort of the quest log, is the way I characterize it for EverQuest Next. It's sort of a sentient book that you carry around with you that will feed you information about the story when it comes available. It's not necessarily like, go here and kill 5 orcs, but, oh, there might be something going on in this village, go explore it. And it's going to keep track of everything you do in the game, feed you information based on it. Ring the microphone. Do you have that?
Please don't ever.
So
that's what the roast song is. Anyways, yeah. Talon, what recap the question that was asked in chat?
The question was, will the roast song or should the roast song have any involvement in religion? And before we went to break, I was of the opinion that yes, it should. It most definitely should. It should, if it interprets your actions as being in furtherance of a deity's objectives, then it should keep feeding you down that path. And it should steer you away from doing things that would be counter to what your deity would want you to do. I think that's a fundamental way that they could insert that into the game without make it heavy-handed, like a hardcore mechanic. Like if you do like old school D&D, like if your lawful good paladin did something wrong and lost his magic, it was like that character was like broken. So it was on a very narrow path. And I think that if you allow the roast song to kind of provide guidance for your character, that would be awesome. Because if you didn't really, like, I helped those people out because of some other reason. It had nothing to do with them being clerics of this one particular god. I really don't care about him. Then you don't have to. But the roast song can provide those suggestions for you, and allow you to game the way you want to.
Yo, dog, I agree with that, man. Absolutely. I just think that Tamlin's in my kind of mindset right now, and that he just understands what I feel within my soul. So, dog, yeah, absolutely.
You gave Kai a headache. I know that face.
Never again.
That was for the WoW talk right there.
What just what just happened? I am lost for words. I don't even. Well, can't live that down. That's on air. That's recorded. That's going on the show.
I think that because the Rose song is sentient and kind of has godlike powers instilled into it, that it would be very cool for the gods to reach out to you through the Rose song. I agree. I love that. That'd be awesome.
I can't breathe because you just ignored it and kept going. Oh, you.
That's worse than my British accent.
Yeah.
So. You guys know that disclaimer that we had in the beginning of the show. I think you were right. I might have spoken too soon.
No shit, Sherlock.
Where do you guys want to take the conversation?
Yeah. But seriously, though, do we have any Flatus, Kai? What do you think about the Rosong's involvement?
No, go Kai. Go ahead.
Are you sure?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Ladies first.
Thank you. Oh wait, there's ladies here. What? No.
What? Boobs.
Yeah, you don't get a.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That was a wah.
Awesome. Because we have other other notes that we could go over if we're done with the Rosong conversation.
No. I had something to say, and so did Kai West.
There should be a button that you can click that says yes, no, talk to me about religion, because seriously, I put a sign on my fucking door for a reason. I'd like to be able to tell the Rose song to fuck off too.
That's kind of a setting for it.
So I think that there may or may not be players that want to be or don't want to be involved in the religious aspects in a game setting. And should they desire not to be, I think that they should be allowed to have that sort of a choice and tell the Rose song somehow in settings, please don't ding dong, your deities are calling. Because maybe they don't want to be involved in that, but the rest of the game is really good. It's just like being able to make the conscious choice. I don't like PvP. I'm not going to play PvP. I feel like that should be something that they're allowed to do if they'd like to.
I agree. I think that it should be maybe a background thing, not a I think. Well, if Rose Song is supposed to do what it's supposed to do, it's supposed to lead you towards things that you enjoy doing. So if you enjoy doing lore and that's based in religion, then it should lead you to do that. If it's more hack and slash and kill things, it should lead you to do that. So there should be. I mean, if it works the way it's supposed to, then yes, then I'm down for it. If it doesn't, then I think they need to find some sort of happy medium. So, I mean, the Rose Song also tricks you, so who knows?
Yeah.
It's a tricky thing, that Rose Song, so.
Trixie, it's so tricksy.
So Legendary has another question for us. Everyone else is slacking but Legendary on these questions tonight.
Pretty normal.
He says, what is the difference between religion and spiritualism, and how/why does it matter? I'll just start off really quick. I don't think there is a difference as far as we're discussing. I think the idea of an extra power or out of this world power is sort of the same thing. I'd say that if we were to talk about religious, at least if I was to talk about religion, that would be the difference in maybe the culture. So while the Karens might be more spiritualists and less about an organized church and tithe and things like that, maybe the elves are very specific. I mean, almost maybe like a Catholic or something. So I don't think there is a difference. I think it just depends on how the narrative's set up.
Yeah,
that's what I'd say.
If it comes to something like my personal difference between them, I don't know, more like the idea that religion has like a fundamental set, and spirituality, like, you know, you might have fire spirits that you worship as part of your practice, but the different fire spirits might vary between where you're at. I don't exactly know. And I'm not going to even guess on what SOE has in store for us in that regard. But I think there is a difference, in my opinion, between religion and spirituality. I'll just leave it at that. Okay. Wheels are off the bus. I'm just gonna say.
Oh boy! All right, let's recoup here. I know we took a hard left real quick. Let's pull back.
We're running NASCAR today. Oh look, they're taking a left.
Geez.
Oh look, they're taking a left. Oh look, they're taking a left.
I had a question for Chewy because we talked a lot about WoW and lore. I think Chewy here kind of leads up with the whole EverQuest. Not to say I haven't played EverQuest. I love EverQuest, but Chewy, I think lore-wise, is more ingrained in that than the other myself, Tamlin, and Kailas. So Chewy, based on what they've done before with the lore, and they connected EverQuest 1 with EverQuest 2, it's 500 years later, and now that EverQuest Next is getting its own lore, do you think that it's a better move for them to do that with EverQuest Next? Or do you think that it...
Yeah, like the rebranding?
Yeah, do you think it's time to rebrand EverQuest and kind of move forward with it?
Yeah, as long as you're not kind of killing off what people loved about the original, because you do have kind of both fan bases. I think that a rebranding is kind of good for the new player to the EverQuest franchise, someone who necessarily pops in the game for the first time and doesn't want to be inundated with all this previous know-how that they might have to know. I will say this, that there are some really creative ways recently within the lore of EverQuest 1 and EverQuest 2 that they're connecting the storylines, so I wouldn't even put it past them to say later as EverQuest Next evolves that we might even see zones from EverQuest 2 or EverQuest maybe pop in, or characters from those, because what happens is the Aetherneer is kind of like the plane of death that connects everything, and they even made the Aetherneer kind of connect to other realms and other dimensions. So in EverQuest 2, there's this one dungeon that someone was like, man, this could be like the Ixar storyline in EverQuest Next maybe, because it's nothing we've ever seen before. It's in a different plane. And EverQuest 1 as well can kind of go into this Aetherneer and explore, kind of storylines from EverQuest 2 and vice versa. So yeah, the rebranding's good, but also how you sort of introduce lore to the player and story information to the player is important too on that level, because you just don't want to throw the whole book at them and say, hey, you need to know this to play. So yeah, I think it's really good. I think it's going to create more depth actually in the storyline, how they're setting up the new gods with the old gods versus the new gods and how they interact with the world. So yeah,
now
the is there, so who knows? There might be some crossover.
Now, as a player of the previous game, and EverQuest 2 and EverQuest 1, do you think that the people that are so ingrained with like EverQuest 1 or EverQuest 2, do you think that EverQuest Next would be the game for them based on the lore they made? Like, and there are some hardcore lore-based people. I mean, like Delamon has voiced personally that EverQuest Next may not be the game for him based on the mechanics and the lore and based on all that stuff. So
yeah, I'd say the mechanics would be more off-putting than the lore, just because the game style is so different that if you're an EQ or EQ2 kind of fan of that older school MMO, that would be the most off-putting thing. I have seen some debates already on Reddit and a couple different areas on the forums that sort of question the changes to the gods. Why is Celesgro the fire god and the knowledge god? Why did they change the gods around? This doesn't make sense. And a lot of people are saying that it sort of created some loopholes and some story, some problems, direct problems in associating the old lore with the new lore when they still want to kind of connect it somehow. I say let bygones be bygones and kill them with a killer product, and they're not going to care. Yeah, they might love their old school lore, but if you give them an astounding game with lore that's even more intricate, complex, and fun to play, screw them. They'll enjoy it.
Yeah, and as far as the reboot, I think that it's definitely something that you're going to want to do, because I think that there's going to be, if you try and do a direct continuation from one game into the next, you're going to have some people that are off-put by that, it's going to be intimidating. You're going to go into a world that has like 15 years of story that you have not participated in. Like if you haven't played it, like me, I haven't played EverQuest 1, only a little bit of EverQuest 2, and not nearly as much to get a good feel of the story in it. And I've seen it happen to my friend who went from, he made a miniature war game. It became hugely successful. He tried to turn it into a video game, and I know that that's one of the problems that they're running into, is that they've got a world with like a decade worth of story behind it, and that's like, there's a bit of intimidation because people have a vocabulary and they talk about things with an area of knowledge and they expect you to know it, and if you don't, you feel like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And so like a reboot and you bring the best parts of that lore with you, and then you present it in a slightly new method so that everybody is coming into the game at the same time.
Yeah, I agree with you both. I think that it's kind of one of those tricky things, and I said it earlier. I think MMOs are this tricky balance. Like I said, it's a balance game. It's kind of like, it's almost like making a cocktail. Like you have to have the perfect balance between sweet and sour, alcohol and water. Like it's like any good bartender will tell you that like making a cocktail is a science. Baking is a science. Cooking is a science. Video game making is a science. Like
Yay,
especially with
chemistry.
Yeah, essentially, and it's the same thing with MMOs, because you have to have all these little parts that make this game. And you have to have something there for the people that love lore. You have to have something there for the people that love crafting, and you have to have something there for the people that love PvP and PvE and questing, and like they're doing this. I mean, essentially, what Sony's doing is clearing the path and saying, "Listen, we don't want to make the next World of Warcraft, and we don't want to make the next. Like, what we want is to make the next iteration of what MMOs are going to be." Now, they have to, like, they're covering a lot of ground here, and they're like kind of letting us in on the ground floor and saying, they're asking us what our opinions are on a lot of these things, and we don't get a lot of information from them, so a lot of it comes from, like, especially like EverCast here. We will tackle the topics and kind of tell you what we think, and Theory Forge will do the same thing. Like, they'll tell you what they think on the subject. It's we want to know what you guys think. Like, tell us we're wrong, tell us we're right,
absolutely.
ask us questions. And like Fugazi DQ just asked, like, how do you think that workshop that is going on now will affect? How do you think the workshop going on now will affect lore? Will the art department get some lore change to be able to use certain types of architecture?
Unfortunately,
that's really good.
I think that those are because you have two different leads. You have Morgar, who is Steve Denuser, who is the lore lead, and then you have Rosie Rappaport, who is the art lead, and like Jeff Butler is the creative director, and you like maybe the art will influence the lore, but I don't see that happening because you have one person working on the art and the style and one person working on the lore, and they might have a conversation going on between them, but I don't see like there being such an art impact on one hand infecting the other. I think that it's going to be lore affecting the art, saying like, hey, this is something that is inspiring this particular race because I wrote it in the lore that's what happened.
Absolutely. I believe when they sit down to do those like voting, I think you have everybody in every art sitting down voting on these things, not just like Dave Jordison and Colette and Domino. Like, you don't have just like three people. I think you have heads of every department, including Steve Denuser, who's the Morgard, who's doing lore, because it has to fit not only the art style, but it has to fit EverQuest Next. Like, not just art style wise, but it has to fit their lore. Like, I think that's why they're so specific on showing us what the art style is and what they're looking for in the game. Like, that's why they're so like, these are the colors. What do you guys think? Like, this is like these little things. Like, if people start adding like architecture things like that are maybe different, if it's too far away from what they want, they may not win. They may be honorable mentions, but if it's right on point, they'll be like, that's exactly what we want. You guys will be picked. Just a heads up.
I'm sort of a doubter of the workshop and the Landmark project a little bit. I know I don't voice it very often, but the fact that they do take our feedback is very cool. The fact that they run these contests is very cool. Will it have a insanely huge impact on the game and what they've been planning over the years? I really don't know. As far as lore, when you have people writing books already and certain lore that's already been written, because we're going back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, the lore that they're making for this game, I don't know that, something that happens in a contest will have a huge impact on changing things. I will say that if there is flexibility, that Morgard probably would get in a debate on the forums, and if he saw something that was a good idea, he'd probably implement it, if it was possible to implement it, depending on the design of the time. But I don't know if that's the main goal of here.
I would almost say this. It may not be implemented at first, but I wouldn't say that it wouldn't be implemented later. Because remember, their world is they're trying to make a living, breathing world, and with the content patches that come out, we would think considerably regularly. That way, that they can have kind of control these, so that the flow of content comes out nice. Who's to say that, like later on, when we get later content, that they change up the lore a little bit for something they saw and said, that was really good. Let's bring it in now and add it to the lore. You never know. I would say you never know. Like, I wouldn't speak too soon that it's going to be a no or yes. I would say maybe we just don't know yet, and that anything is possible. I would say this right now, from the information we have, anything is on the table until we are told officially it's off the table. I think that's the way we kind of have to look at it. And going through questions, Legendary Neurotoxin asks, should players be able to invent a religion? Landmark,
there's
sure.
Some debate and chat on this too. Actually.
No,
there has. Landmark, sure.
And again, this goes back to the question about characters getting married in our last question. That if you put role players in the world, they're going to create whatever the hell they want, and you cannot stop them. Will there be mechanics behind the religion? Probably not. But is there going to be mechanics in the game for any other religion other than like maybe some flavor text or some quests that point to things that the developers have written? And the thing is that like even in I'm going to bring up Warcraft again. Warcraft, people created mods so that they could put flavor text on whatever items they wanted. That if you had the mod and I had the mod, we could both see it, and they would create their own quests. It's gonna happen whether or not SOE wants to or not. I mean, people are gonna be having the religion of the Bob, and there's no real way to stop it because
Bob.
Because our peers are our peers. And I think that in Landmark, that if you give them a world where they can really create, then they might be able to create cool, epic stories in the video game setting. And in EverQuest Next, it's going to be a whole lot more limited on what they can create.
I will say this. Or time travel F's a game's lore real quick. I think that's one thing that EverQuest Next should stay away from, is some sort just stay away from time travel.
They do that a lot in EQ2, in certain ways.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I think they might, especially because think of the storyline they're setting up. How many years? I mean, if you pull up the list of the ages that they're creating, I mean, there's only 2. We're The lore so far is 1 age behind our current age when we go to play, but there's 20 ages previous to that. So, I mean, maybe they won't do a full, you're going back in time to this zone, even though I think that might be kind of cool. There's definitely elements of time travel, and at least the lore, and the fact that you'll be discovering the past, and maybe how you interpret the past could change the future. I don't know.
Legendary had another question. What kind of support should SOE offer established religions that are separate from the guilds? Should players be able to join a religion and interact with it in a similar but separate way than guilds? Should religion be a social thing that is 100% roleplayed, or something else?
Create a faction or a separate unit group. I'm a Tuner follower, so I'm in the Tuner chat channel and I can wear the Tuner tag. If it's necessary. I don't know if it's necessary. I mean, can't I just have a tag above my head and talk about my god? Do I? I mean,
if there are guilds that specifically follow one god in game, that's that's deep. That's deep roleplay. Yeah. I mean, that's real good roleplay. That's deep roleplay. Like that's hella deep role play where they're just like they're just the guild's called the Follow-to-Nairs or whatever, and they're just like strict.
What's kind of funny is that
Crusaders.
No,
Yeah.
even before there was the Crusaders, there was another guild. And again, I talk about my experience, and most of my experiences in Vanguard and Warcraft. But there was a particular guild on a Warcraft server that basically evolved into their own. Like, we worship this guy because whatever reason, and it turned out like halfway through the expansion that guy became a bad guy. So it was like, it's like one of those things. Like, you have to kind of be careful about that, because that I don't know. I don't think that they should put too many systems in place. I think that you just kind of have to back off and let the people play it the way they want to play it. And because if you go too far, it seems like you're endorsing it, and they want that's one of the things that you don't want to have a world by democracy. Like, the developers need to have a handle on where their world is and where they would like to see it go, and a brief roadmap on how they're going to get there. And the players can maybe nudge it, but they don't direct how that journey goes. In so much as only when it comes to like creating religions and creating gods, because those are big world changing events, and you can see them having small impact on the world, but not that big type stuff.
Willacres 94. If I murdered your name, I apologize.
Willacres?
I think. Oh, maybe it is Willacres 94. Should we allow certain NPCs to ascend godhood as demigods and allow them to be worshipped? Things like the new goddess Furiona V or what have you. I think that's an interesting. I think Willacres. I think that is a fantastic point, because the gods. Remember, I remember this clearly being said that the gods are not in this world, like EverQuest 1, where the gods were physical things that you could go and kill with a large group of people as a raid. That they're not visible, but that would be like much like who says that the gods can't come in and possess or give their powers to someone,
I'm all for it.
I'm all for that. Like,
I'm
why not? Why not?
I'm all type of those type of rallying cries, whatever that go into that type of storytelling. I think that's interesting, because especially if you can make a rally call go, basically it's not a pass or fail, it's a left or a right. So the players can push it to the left or they can push it to the right, but it's not like a pass or fail type system. So if this particular individual is pushed to is pushed into godhood by the players, there's one outcome. But if it gets pushed the other way, there's another person who gets elevated to godhood, which is a different outcome. Now, maybe that's a variation that they don't want to play around with, but I'd love to see it. That's an incredibly inviting world that I'd want to participate in, where you have that type of influence. You have that type of influence in the world.
Who says that like a bad guy or a good person can't go in and please a god to the? But like, it's not us, but it's like an NPC that we help reach to that point. Like, it's a monk that, like I said, I've always mentioned the monk on the mountain. I help him reach his higher presence, and he gets the ever-seeing eye or whatever. So that'd be kind of cool. I'm down for that. That's that's the game that we want. So it'd be kind of cool to see that. So Legendary Neurotoxin asks, how much should players be allowed to desecrate property of rival religions?
Let's not get into that.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, I think there's a good way for me to address that specifically. And I think that, and I don't recall specifically, but if they do PvP and non-PvP servers, I think if it's a PvP server, and it's specifically like an RP PvP server, and I realize that an RP server isn't really a necessity to have in any, MMO, because if the people want to RP, they're going to. But I think if there's like specifically an RP PvP server, that wouldn't really be an issue, in my opinion, if I knew that was the way it could happen on a specific server. I wouldn't necessarily want all of the servers to operate in that manner, but it could be an interesting level to it. And honestly, it's not like if you go grab your Deities and Demigods D&D book and look at it, there are religions that don't get along with each other, and some of the not nicer ones are all for going against the other ones really, really unnicely.
Here, Chew, let me paint this picture for you. Let's say if you're like a necromancer and you worship the god of death versus cleric who worships the god of light, and then as a necromancer you destroy a light thing, and that allows your the undead to spread in that area. That would be kind of awesome, wouldn't it? It allowed the death, the god of death, to spread further into that area versus
I mean, that is really cool, and that kind of goes back to the previous question, I think, actually, and players having the power to make real change in the world. Smedley, before the EQN reveal actually came out, way early on, when they were talking about, when they first trashed the original EverQuest Next and were moving towards the new model, he was talking about a player being able to find this really powerful spell and becoming sort of a demigod or a raid boss, and that the players would have to kind of take out that player. And I don't think we've seen that in EQN. I think that was an early hope, and maybe that was just Smedley talking about what he'd like to see in a game, because EQN doesn't seem to be that way. But if we could have an effect especially with story breaks, and me as a necromancer being able to spread death and destruction in a certain area, and if clerics aren't around to kind of repeal that death and destruction, have it spread and stuff, I think that could be cool.
Yeah, I've watched Smedley play H1Z1, and he's got a bit of troll in his personality, and that's the giant fear of giving someone power, is because then, especially if they've got a little bit of charisma and they can get people to follow along, because one of the things I've learned in MMOs is if you give a small enough group a bit of following, all of a sudden whatever they're doing explodes into something big, and that's the last thing you want is a troll guild with some charismatic leader. They'll just destroy the server, like not destroy it physically, but it'll just be bad. And I don't think you'd ever want to give the player that type of it becomes a raid boss power. Mm-mm.
Yeah, unless it was some specific design in the game where they can only do so much, and it'd be for a limited time, like a monster mode. Not unless you heavily test it, because that's what they're talking about in Landmark Live when they're talking about emergent griefing. Can you predict all the ways that with a limited skill set, such as the tools they give us in Landmark, what all the players can do? Because if the players are surprising, the developers with what all they can do, just stay away from that, because the emergent griefing, emergent trolling, it will happen. True. It has to be combated. You're right. Absolutely. And I think that's a good point to make. There's another question from Willikers again. Shouldn't I be able to create a religion among lesser races worshipping me? I don't think any kind of player made religion should be in the game. I mean, kind of like what we said before, at least for me. One
player, a little bit of charisma, a little bit of following, and that thing just snowballs. Especially if other people are they're not necessarily trolls, but it appeals to their troll instinct. The next thing you know, they're following along because they think it's funny.
I was gonna say, if you've never seen the documentary or the write-up about the teacher who kind of led his students to believe a certain way of thinking as a social study in his class, it was a social studies class. The whole class ended up by the end of the semester believed that everything, and then he stopped and told them this was all a sham. Everything that he had told them was his first social studies experiment. And they believed it. They followed him. They all started wearing white. It was very in-depth. All it takes is one charismatic person. This is why, you can't go too far and too deep into things, because all it takes is, I essentially get it, because at the same time I say this is the same thing as, a guild leader. A guild leader needs to be charismatic, has to be able to get people, has to be able to write the rules for the guild, and people have to be able to follow it and say they want to follow that guy. That is essentially the same thing. So I wouldn't say maybe so much of a religion. Look at guilds. Guilds are essentially
what that is. What if Biscuits or the Enclave had a religion? And because
were you reading my mind? Because I was thinking that. That's exactly what I was thinking. It's what would happen if a person like that knew that they could get that type of power? They would just.
How can anybody call that jackass charismatic? He had zero charisma. I've talked to him before. was not charismatic. How the guy got a girlfriend, I've got no bloody clue except for the fact that maybe she was just a little gullible. That man was not charismatic.
I didn't want to get into like specifics. I didn't want to get into the specifics about talking to one person, but what I'm talking about is one person who can get a small but loyal following. They can wreck a server community because that small loyal following will get that little edge, and people will flock to it because that group has some sort of power that they, and it's all downhill from there. Like no.
Yeah,
like the Helsing Army.
Yeah.
I
the Helsing
think
Army should never.
I think that it requires, like, because we're not talking on like just a group of people that like to follow somebody that's charismatic. We're talking a group of people that wants to follow somebody that's charismatic that's got a little bit of evil in them, because that's how I feel about trolls. I think they've got just a little bit of evil inside. And hot. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I don't think that's the kind of person that Flatus is. Flatus isn't going to be like the
he's got no evil in him.
Inside
no evil inside.
I don't. Okay, are we? So hold on. Demeanor, yes. Nature, no.
No.
See,
no.
He's just there's a big thing there, and I think I agree with my
there is that. Well,
I agree with my husband. He is right, in my opinion, that if we gave that kind of power to players, it would absolutely snowball. And as much as I think it'd be cool to be able to give that type of power to players, no offense, guys, I love you all, but some of y'all are nasty and evil and trolls
and eat all the cookies.
And I'm not saying you specifically or you specifically, but y'all trolls, you ruin it for the rest of us. So,
Diggs was like, "What players won't have that power?" That's my point. Diggs, I agree with you. But somebody in chat did actually ask like, I kind of want that power. Like, you can't, I mean, not to say that you would do, like, it's kind of like the whole Spider-Man thing. With great power comes great responsibility, and honestly, do you really have that type of responsibility? If you've ever played The Sims and just surrounded all your Sim character with, like, 4 refrigerators and watched them just can't go to the bathroom but constantly eat food, you should probably sit and start a
I've deleted the ladders in swimming pools before.
Yeah, I've done that too. Like, death comes and gets them. Like, I've done horrible things to Sims. I can't start a religion.
Are you the babe with the power?
Like, it's like I said. What was the last episode with like the Helsing Army? Like, the way I run a guild is the same way. It's like if you're not having fun, I'm not the guild for you. It's like that's how I feel. Like, if you need to have fun, and I try to make it a lighthearted thing. Like, that's how I run the Helsing Army, and like the people stick around and hang out.
I don't know, man. I've like walked in on you guys in a meeting. They were all chanting your name and worshiping you, and that was a little creepy, I believe. So, I mean,
listen,
maybe you're a leader, but it was weird.
Yeah, that's because it was chant my name Thursday.
I'm looking for a cork to shove in Chewina's mouth.
Aww. So we have 14 minutes left, and we haven't discussed in-game holidays at all.
Wait, yeah, I was gonna say the holidays were like the big thing for me, because that's more because I think that those more MMOs that I've played have done in-game holidays, then they've really gone into depth about the lore. Yes. Because they throw up their holiday decoration, there's holiday quests, there's holiday NPCs. They really tried to bring those out of game holidays into the world, and sometimes it becomes too much. I know that even in Vanguard, I thought that they scaled it up a little bit too much, and they needed to turn it down.
So I have a pretty simple thing to say about religions in video game or holidays.
Holidays.
Apologies, holidays. Too much religion, not enough holidays. Holidays in video games are a lot of fun because I get cool mounts and fun titles.
And that's why my dad likes that
and
too.
Awesome
It's the cool things, all the little things that you don't have to be a hardcore raider or a hardcore PvPer, and you get the access to these mounts and these titles, and they're kind of fun.
Anybody for listening to us on Stitcher right now that didn't see the video cast, Kyle Les just made the greatest, like, I'm going to murder you face towards It was quite beautiful. I have tears in my eyes. I'm so happy because of that. Continue.
Well,
I'll go next then. I mean, she's gonna murder you, but I'll go next. I will say this: I love holidays and games. I think that I played EverQuest 2's Halloween last year, and it was one of the most fun holiday events I think I've ever been through. And they change it every year, where I feel like, and I'll talk about Warcraft again. Warcraft is very much the same every year. Like, you go and run the Headless Horseman to get the mount. And I've never, like, I tell you this much, I've never had that damn mount drop for me. Not once. But in EverQuest 2, they, oh good, we're in the same boat. We can talk about that later. But I can say this, EverQuest 2 did a lot of fun things. Like, they had this haunted maze. You run your character to, and you go trick or treat. And there's chances that you get a treat or you get a trick. One of the houses was like, oh, you get a trick, you get a treat. And I was like, okay, cool, I get a little bonus or I get candy or whatever. And then it's like, and all of a sudden a zombie popped up on the screen, like full in front of your screen and screamed at you. One of the greatest things, I was like, this is fantastic. Like, this, I was like, I can't wait. And they had like a Plants vs. Zombies thing where you planted a plant, you had to protect like a little ghost girl, and the zombie, like undead kept coming out, and you had to pick up plants and plant them up, and then also attack the zombies. It was so much fun. And this is a free-to-play game. Like, go play that. Like, October's coming up. Go play like EverQuest's Halloween thing because it's fantastic. And I love that. I love that games can take time to do that. I think that, and especially like Christmas, and they have with Tinkerfest, and I think
they do a lot with the lore and the gods too. Like,
yeah.
Tinkerfest, which the Brel, the god of the dwarves, and like the creation or whatever. He is a drunk, so he loves Brewfest, and Brewfest is an in-game holiday. The Tinkerfest is the gnomes and their kind of favorite holiday because they have crazy gadgets going around. Like, it's fun.
Tinkers.
So,
I actually played Tinkerfest and
Nice.
that one, and it was so much fun. But like, people are kind of opposing in chat, and it's like some of them are saying that they don't like holidays that coincide with real world holidays, and some are saying that they like holidays that coincide with real world holidays. And like, my favorite in-game holiday, Valentine's Day. Please give me Valentine's Day in game. It's my favorite.
But they're like, and that was one of the points that I brought up in the show notes, is that there are some concepts that are going to be universal to whatever world that you put people on, right? Like New Year's Day, New Year's Eve, right? Because if you have a calendar where you numerically count up from one year to the next, whatever to the next whenever, when that cycles over to the next one, it's going to be something that's universally celebrated across all cultures, even in fantasy, because it's the end of one and the beginning of another, and that's something that you know we appreciate the significance of, and we celebrate the you know, that sort of thing regardless of culture. And then, like, one of the things that I wrote in the show notes is that, you know, there are some things that transcend cultures on the you know, the sphere of dirt that we live on because of the equinoxes and the solstices, right? And so those are significant astrological events that, you know, I called them celestial holidays, that become important because they you know, like the middle of winter, the middle of summer, the beginning of spring, you know, where we know that warmer days are now ahead of us, or the fall equinox, when we know that the harvesting season is finally over because everything needs to be out of the ground. And one of the questions I had is Norath on the belly of a dragon floating through the cosmos? Is it going to have seasons? Is it going to have that type of celestial tilt to the body of the world so that we have those type of seasons? And do we have the mechanics in the game to support seasons. Chad pointed out that
I'll speak to the mechanics. H1Z1, right? They have a dynamic weather system. It's the first time we've really seen that in an MMO, and in a world that doesn't reset. They have their shaders and their texture systems to where it can start snowing, and the snow can actually change its density, and that can affect the clouds that roll in. You know, snow, it can be a really strong rainstorm, but if I stand under a tree, that's not going to affect my character. You know, they have this kind of system built on the Forge Light engine. I can totally see that transferred to EQN once they figure out the optimization problems with it. So that could be really cool. And on the belly of a dragon thing, I mean, if you have a world on the belly of a dragon, anything's possible, Tamlin. Anything's possible.
Fair enough. That is a great point, right? Because if I'm imagining that a world is, a piece of rock floating through space, and the world of Norath is on the belly of a dragon, then, we can just throw out everything that we know about, how things work on Earth and be like, well, Norath is magical. So it snows when we says it snows, bam, it happens. And I think that now here's another question. If the Storybrick engine is aware of everything that has happened over the course of a year, what do you think about harvest type holiday events being a reflection of how the year went in like a particular village? Like if the villagers are like, dude, we got raided by orcs 15 times in the last month, you think we're going to celebrate? We're holidays canceled.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Or alternately, the village knows that you've chased off all the bandits and all of the orcs that are raiding it, and so they have all this wealth, and they're like, "This is the best harvest we've ever had." Do you think that they should look at that type of thing? Do you think that the Storybricks engine should allow that type of thing in the world?
I think that would be.
Or did I just blow everyone's mind?
No, that would be amazing.
It would be really cool. Absolutely. Yeah.
Mind blown.
So you're traveling across, it's maybe Tinkerfest, but one village gnomes, they didn't have enough, resources to make the Tinkerfest items, so they're all sad. And maybe that could sponsor a quest to go get the Tinkerfest items, and you can either craft them, or you could steal them from the other village, and kind of deciding which village is going to be happy and which one's going to be sad for Christmas. I think that could be really cool. And I guess kind of possible in the system that they're talking about. A whole new breed of in-game kind of events with this new MMO that they're trying to make. Faux show. Does it break your immersion, guys? To see orcs and Santa hats and stuff like that? For me, it doesn't. I enjoy it. It never has really bothered me. As long as it's kind of written into the lore. It could have parallels. I could see pumpkins on Halloween, but as long as there's some pumpkin king or something that comes around in the lore, I don't. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah, I think it's not that it was super great, but I think that what's it called? Guild Wars 2 had it written in its lore that the Mad King was the Pumpkin King. It was done really well. The jumping puzzle, his clock tower thing was done really well, and his little boss fight was done really well, and he would destroy the Lion's Ark, he would pop up in the middle of Lion's Ark, and it was really cool. I think little things like that. I can see. Oh wait, Legendary Nortox Talent does centrifugal force that allows multiple days per real world day cause gravity to be higher.
Oh, that's not actually our
bro.
Our gravity. Hold on. Let me handle this. Right?
Yeah. No,
the gravity on Earth is not based upon the rate at which we spend. It's based upon the density of the Earth. Yeah. So. Yeah.
Oh, dude, that's NASA right there. Bro, you just got NASA'd.
So if Norath were the same size and the same density, it wouldn't matter how fast it spun. It would still have the same gravity.
Oh,
and Williker is great. It's centripetal. Centripetal.
It is indeed centripetal, not central.
As for immersion, I think that one of the things that EverQuest Next is going to address that is going to really make it better for me personally is that we're not going to see the yellow exclamation mark quest here type stuff, and so when they add in a whole bunch of holiday type events, it's going to be like the NPCs are going to behave differently, and if you go and you interact with them and you talk with them, or they will possibly give you a hint at something that they would like you to do for them, and they will reward you for doing that thing. So it's a whole lot more immersive, instead of like, on Tuesday this guy has no quest for me. On Wednesday he's got his holiday hat and a holiday quest for me. I like that type of approach. I think EverQuest Next really has an advantage in the way that they're delivering quests, especially holiday quests.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Flatus. You can go first.
I was gonna say, especially since it's all based on the Tamlin can say the name now. I can't say the name. The rallying call. Holidays can just be rallying calls. Like, it's just like these holiday quests can come in like that lead us through Norath based on the lore. It'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, or they could take more of a passive approach. Kind of what we were talking about with the villages before. Maybe one village isn't celebrating while someone else is. The holiday time comes up. Maybe even the races celebrate differently. Instead of everyone having Santa hats, maybe the gnomes love Santa hats, but the Terrans celebrate it completely different. And by traveling across the world, you can get this whole new sense of what the holiday means. It doesn't have to be, go to this instance and collect all these things, as most holiday quests are, or try this new jumping puzzle we put in the game, but it can be instilled in the fabric of the world. So,
I mean,
cool
based on how, like, you remember, like, I always go back to it, like how we gain the cleric class or something like that. Wouldn't it be interesting, like, that's how quests, like, not necessarily quests, but like how holiday, like, things went down. It's like we discovered something that was like somebody praying out in the middle of a field, and then we prayed with them, or we did something, or like asked what you did, or laid down the candle. Like,
Yeah.
I would love to. We saw this once in and I hate to say it, Warcraft, but there is a weekly event where the NPCs spawn and they walk towards the beach. I would love to see more type of that type of holiday thing, because like I don't like seeing fixed NPCs that never move, and they're not. I don't know, they're so static, but I would love to see like a parade where all of a sudden all the NPCs all like, oh hey, we're gonna go celebrate at our bonfire to celebrate this specific event, and they shut down their stores, they no longer sell anything if they're vendors, and they all march down the street to go to the center location. That would be awesome. That would really make me feel like I was in that immersive world, and I don't think that it detracts from gameplay too much, as long as there were like maybe a slightly more difficult vendor to get at to get rid of your trash, if they even have that type of stuff in the game.
The holiday that he's referring to was actually pretty neat. We attended it together for the first time in game, and like they all come down to the beach and they start lighting bonfires and setting off fireworks, and there's NPCs that are actually singing, and you can hear them singing and playing music, and you can watch them sit there and strum on their musical instruments, and they look like they're walking around and interacting with each other, and it's really neat. It's not just static or even mostly static. It was really dynamic. And while you couldn't impact anything that was actually going on, you couldn't stop the festival, you couldn't start the festival, you just kind of had to be there at the right time and check it out. But it was still really cool, and I really enjoyed it, and I kind of hope that there's more like that. And maybe more that are even further interactive than that one was specifically. But that one, probably one of my favorites. And it's not even really a holiday. It's just like every Sunday in game, it's there.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing to remember is that the Storybricks engine, creates that kind of situation where it doesn't have to be pre-programmed necessarily. NPCs could react differently to the holidays based on maybe if their family got murdered on that holiday or something. There's so many. That's a really dark example, but there's so many different examples that could be used.
But you could do
emergent interaction.
No, but what you could say, like, instead of killing someone, is that we often do holidays based around victories in battle.
Yeah, like lore days or something where we defeated the dragon army on this day or something.
Right, that would be awesome.
It would, yeah. Well, guys, is there any last comments we wanted to talk about when it comes to religion and holidays in the game?
I would just like to say that every time, and I'm going to say the name wrong most likely, but Catchy says for Bob, swear to God, misread it as for boob. Thanks, Flatus.
Oops. All right, guys. I guess it's that time where we'll go around for our final thoughts, and we'll say goodbye to everyone here at the EverCast. So, Tamlin, when you go first for your final thoughts.
I'm not so big on major mechanics for religions or holidays in MMOs, but I think that there is a way to write them into the world so that they're more of a in the background type effect that you can see and interact with at your leisure. But I think that you just really have to weigh the pros and benefits of investing in that type of thing.
Okay.
See, don't make it too religion heavy, or at the very least, let me turn it off.
Or be able to ignore it.
Yeah, or be able to. Yeah, it's Can I click ignore? Can I tell you to go GTFO? And I really enjoy the holidays in game. Yeah, awkward silence because I was just talking about 2 boob 4 boob. So. Sorry.
Yeah, a big change in conversation, absolutely. For me, I just kind of want to reiterate what Tamlin said. I think, tying it to a mechanic is a choice that you have to really carefully consider as a developer. You have to consider how exactly it's going to play into the gameplay, and whether or not people are actually going to want to do that kind of content. I think that personally I would really enjoy it, and that being able to see the lore and the gods really sort of interact with the world in a passive way could create a lot of really dynamic storylines and can make it really interesting if we ever did see those gods appear. As far as holidays, I always loved the idea of in-game holidays. I'd like to see them reciprocated in EverQuest Next. But yeah, tie it a little more to the storyline. Now that you have story bricks and dynamic AI and can make the world change on a whim, I'd like to see it more as less of a specific event where it's going for a month and you can collect these certain shinies in this one zone, and more sort of a world event, a true world event that you can see the differences across the entire plane of Norath and maybe even through other planes and all that stuff. So that's me on those 2 topics.
All right, and my final thoughts. For religion games, yeah, go ahead and have it. I think whatever makes you stay in the game and play it, and it should be there for you, and it should be fun. And if religion is part of lore and part of RPing for you, then absolutely. If it benefits your character in a certain way, cool, go for it. As for holidays, I love holidays in games. I think they're fun for me. I like them. I love Halloween in general, out in the real world, and I love Halloween in games. So anytime I can do multiple Halloweens, I will totally do that. Same for Christmas and any other religion and fake holiday they want to throw in there, Tinkerfest or whatever. So I'm in for that. At the end of the day, I think that we're all here to play a game that's supposed to be fun. So if you don't like the content that they provide, don't do it. Go do something else. It's what MMOs are there for, right? They have all this content there for us to experience. So you don't have to do the religion. You don't have to do the holiday. Have fun with what makes you happy in game. And on that note, that is the 33rd episode of EverCast. Merry Bare Butt Eve, wow. Everybody.
We are
we are.
Well, I bare butts and I cannot lie. You other
I don't want
to deny.
Yeah.
Fired.
We're
fired.
Wasting a bare butt in your face, you get sprung.
I just realized we're going to hit episode 50 before end of the year.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, that's going to be a thing. Yeah, I think so. I meant to do the math on that. I think we made that may happen. That may be a thing.
Yeah. 17 weeks.
17 weeks. I think that we may hit that. So, guys, this is our 33rd episode. Thank you for all coming out and spending your 2 hours of your Sunday with us. We appreciate it. We will see you next Sunday. If you have any questions that we didn't get towards during the show, please email us at evercast.show@gmail.com. We will read it live here and answer your questions. And if you haven't, follow all of us and follow at EverCast Show on Twitters and go to our blog spot and listen to us. Oh, please, people that listen to us on Stitcher, like us, thumbs up us, and rate us on Stitcher. That helps us. Believe it or not, that really does help us. That helps push us up, and people look at that and they'll listen to us more, and that helps us out. So if you are a audio listener, please do that for us.
And we would love you
appreciate that.
forever and ever and ever and ever. Not that we don't already.
Yeah, I don't know how to send virtual cookies yet, except through a website, but I'm pretty sure you have those disabled if you're a smart internet user.
Dude, get out of my head. I totally was thinking virtual cookies would be perfect.
Thank you all for coming here from the bottom of our hearts, and we will see you next time. And I'm going to camp us out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See y'all next time.